I had spent years bottling it up, the late nights of quiet suffering, the times I swallowed my pain just to keep the peace, the moments I convinced myself that love was supposed to be this hard, that perhaps heartbreak was just a symptom of loving deeply, and yet somewhere in that lonely ache, I always hoped things would turn around, that maybe one day she would look at me with the same tenderness I used to see before it all faded, before her eyes turned cold and her words became weapons she wielded with surgical precision. And so I waited day after day, pretending the silence between us was just a phase, that the way she looked at her phone more than she looked at me was just the modern way of living, not the symptom of detachment, but the truth was I had known for months, maybe even years, that something had broken, that the woman I once adored with every beat of my heart had grown distant, colder, emotionally absent in a way that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. And still I held on because I thought if I just loved her harder, if I proved to her that I was worth it, that our story mattered, she'd come back to me. But every effort I made was met with disinterest, every confession with a shrug, every gesture with a blank stare that felt like a slap in the face, and it got to a point where I could no longer recognize the woman sleeping beside me. She had become an echo of someone I once knew, a silhouette filled with silence, and the longer I stayed, the more I withered inside, my self-worth eroded by the constant dismissal, the empty conversations, the way her phone lit up with texts that made her smile when my words couldn't even earn a nod. And I knew I was losing her, piece by piece, night by night, as if she was already gone and just hadn't packed her bags yet. And yet I still didn't leave because the thought of giving up on her felt like giving up on everything we built, and so I kept quiet, enduring the cold shoulders, the forgotten dates, the lack of intimacy that once defined our bond, until one night something in me broke. I don't know what it was exactly, maybe the way she rolled her eyes when I asked how her day was, maybe it was the empty fine she threw at me like a bone to a starving dog, but I stood there trembling and finally let it all out, every hurt I had buried, every moment I felt unseen, every second I spent wondering why I wasn't enough anymore. And I told her I missed her, that I missed us, that I was still here, still trying, even when it felt like I was the only one who cared. And I told her I was hurting, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, that I needed her to fight for us the way I had been fighting alone. And when I finished, when the silence between us became unbearable, she looked at me, blankly emotionless like a stranger, and with the coldest voice I've ever heard she simply said, "Then leave," and turned away, as if my pain was an inconvenience, as if the years we shared were disposable. And in that moment something inside me shattered so completely that I didn't even cry. I just stood there, numb, realizing that the woman I loved was already gone, had been gone for a long time, and that I was holding on to a ghost of who she used to be. And so I left, quietly, without drama, without slamming doors or shouting, just a bag of clothes and a broken heart. And as I stepped into the night, I felt the weight of her indifference crush me in ways I didn't know were possible, and the days that followed were a blur of silence, of learning to breathe without her, of waking up to the absence of her scent and the emptiness of a home that once felt alive. And I tried not to replay her words, but they echoed louder each day. Then leave. As if I had been the problem, as if my vulnerability was a burden she could no longer carry, and I began to question everything. Was I too much? Too emotional? Too desperate? But in time I realized her reaction wasn't about me. It was about the wall she built to keep love out, the way she shut down instead of opening up. And while that realization didn't soften the blow, it gave me clarity, and in the silence of starting over, I found pieces of myself I had lost in her apathy, and I began to heal slowly through late-night walks and long journal entries, through therapy and honest conversations with friends who reminded me I was worthy of love that didn't punish me for feeling deeply. And just when I began to find peace in solitude, I received a message from her, not long, just a few words: "I'm sorry." And though my heart trembled, I didn't reply, because sometimes the best closure is the one you give yourself. And I had finally learned that love isn't supposed to feel like begging, that expressing your heart shouldn't be met with silence, that the right person will never tell you to leave when you're choosing to stay. And though her words broke me, they also freed me, and now, months later, I look back not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the strength I found in heartbreak, for the way I rebuilt myself from the ruin she left behind, stronger, wiser, and no longer afraid to speak my heart, because next time, I'll speak it to someone who listens.